It's Tuesday, January 29th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, Chief Sonnabend joins us in studio for some feel-good news, and we get our mid-year report card from Barnstable Public Schools. First up, municipal and community news and notes. Just a few more days to take part in the Community Resiliency by Design survey. Deadline is January 30th. The Community by Design project is a joint initiative to develop compact model housing designs that are appropriate for the distinct characteristics of the neighborhood while also serving the housing needs of the community. Please take the survey at www.townofbarnstable.us to share your thoughts on creating housing solutions the community needs and supports. A lost charm bracelet, a little girl who takes officer safety seriously, and the 31st graduating class of the Citizens Police Academy. All in this interview with the Chief. It's a terrific Tuesday. It's not always bad news when you talk to the Chief of Police. With me today, Chief Sonnabend. We have a terrific Tuesday.
Terrific Tuesday.
All good news. I'm good. How about you?
Outstanding. Terrific.
Terrific. Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So there's all sorts of good news that was on your Facebook page this past week. Let's start with a young lady who is out there to protect police by giving you St. Michael's medals. Tell us about that.
Kiva Assad, Mashpee resident. Her father is actually a Mashpee police officer. With the passing of Sean Gannon and all the other terrible events that have happened over the past year, she kind of took it to heart and was thinking of ways that she could, do something to make a difference for police officers, let them know that there are people out there that cared. And she developed an idea to take recyclable bottles and cans, sell them, turn them in and get the money, the 5-cent deposit, and buy St. Michael's medals. So she started doing this, and the ball kept rolling and rolling and rolling. She was meeting with police departments, handing out medals, realized that the bottles and cans weren't quite getting her to where she was going. Took a little while, so she started doing bake sales and everything else, and she raised enough money to buy about 1,000 medals, and she's been going to departments. She visited us last week and giving officers the St. Michael medals.
So what's the significance, some people don't know this, what's the significance of St. Michael's to the police department?
It's the patron saint of police officers, protect you, keep you safe from harm and stuff like that. A lot of guys wear them either on their vests or carry them in pockets or in their wallets and things like that. But it's a often you'll see families that buy them for the officers when they get sworn in at the academy. They get them usually on the first day of the job and keep one. So it's a lot of history in there involved.
A lot of history, and what a cool kid.
That is awesome. That is great, and it really does pick you up to know that you come into a roll call and as the kid's there, she's handing us stuff out, and she's she spoke well. She told everyone the whole idea behind the project, and it was awesome. It was great. Excellent.
And then another feel-good coming out of records this past week. This I just thought was amazing. A charm bracelet found from a break-in but returned to its rightful owner years later.
Years later. It's funny how things work. You see it in the paper every once in a while. Someone finds something on the beach or whatever. And we've been kind of trying to improve our Facebook and get it out there a little bit more, thinking about different departments or different parts of the police department that really hadn't been on there, but maybe would, if they had something. I spoke to Kathy Hinckley, who runs our records department, and she said sure. She spoke to her staff, and they had, one of them mentioned, hey, we've got this bracelet that was, recovered, but no one's ever really claimed it. Let's put that on Facebook. So they did. They put a description out there, and they had some inquiries, and lo and behold, this gentleman calls and was able to describe it accurately and gave the whole story what the bracelet was about, and he came in and picked it up.
The power of Facebook.
Yeah, power of Facebook.
Yeah, it got shared, and the story was actually in the Times on Monday, that this gentleman from the Mills had lost his mother when he was 12 years old, and this charm bracelet was something that he was going to give to his daughter. Yep,
Mark Cordero, he was keeping the charm bracelet. He was going to be giving it to his daughter when she turned 21. He was in the process of moving, had it in his truck. At that time, a couple of years ago, there were some vehicle B&Es, burglaries that had occurred, and someone had gotten into his truck and then took the bracelet. Through the course of investigation, we apprehended the person, and they had a whole bunch of property, but we never were able to figure out where the charm bracelet came exactly from. So they put this thing out on Facebook, and I guess his daughter or somebody saw it and told him about it and said, hey, I think this is your bracelet. And he called up and was able to describe it.
That's fantastic.
That's great. You know, we have to apologize. There were a couple of news agencies that called up and said, hey, could you give us some pictures? We'd like to put, well, we got to kind of keep it a little low key, because if we put pictures up, we want to be the person that's calling to be able to describe it enough to let us know that it actually is theirs. And we can't put too many details out there. People, you know, give it to the wrong person or whatever. But
I loved how he described all the charms and what they meant to his mother and to the kids that were his family. It was a wonderful story. Terrific Tuesday, right?
Terrific Tuesday.
And one last thing is, last night you graduated another class of the Citizens Police Academy.
Citizens Police Academy.
31st.
31st. Lieutenant Mark Cabral, Sergeant Eric Driftmeyer doing a great job. This is a program that started many years ago, and I can't believe it. 31 different classes have gone through. It's a great program. We run it every year in the fall. It gives people a chance to come in and see what, you know, is behind the blue curtain a little bit, figure out how things work and why we do what we do. But it also gives us a chance, and officers a chance, to interact with people from outside, to hear their questions and bring up different points of view that maybe they weren't considering when we're out there dealing with the public. So it's a great program.
Yeah, went through it myself this year.
Congratulations, you've now been certified.
I've been certified, and you know, the classes, you know, weeknights, you know, every Monday night for 13 weeks. It's a long haul to get through there, but the breakdown of divisions within your department was absolutely fascinating. A ride-along, everybody got to do a ride-along if they wanted to. They get to fire a police-issue pistol at a firing range, which was an amazing experience. And I have to say, every single one of the classes was interesting, and it was a pleasure to meet all of your staff. It was fantastic. It
is a great program. The people who come in participate, and the officers who are, you know, in there teaching and participating as well love to do it. It is a great program.
Terrific Tuesday.
Terrific Tuesday.
Thanks. School Superintendent Meg Mayo-Brown and School Committee Chair Chris Joyce join us in studio for a quarterly update on the latest in the Barnstable school system. It's a new year, but halfway through the school year. With me today, Superintendent Meg Mayo-Brown and Chair of the School Committee, Chris Joyce. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Paula. Great to be here.
So we're halfway through the school year. It kind of has to feel pretty good, right? 2018 into 2019 now, but we're right in the heart of budget season. So Chris and Meg, tell us a little bit about the process of budget for schools.
Well, at this point in time, the principals and department heads are submitting their budget requests for school committee consideration. So that's where we are in the process. Principals and directors would submit, you know, if they need new positions, new materials, so they provide a rationale and a budget amount, and we start compiling that data to present to the school committee. And then from there?
So we have a number of presentations starting at our next school committee, and it's throughout the winter. You know, in it's a moving target because it's constantly moving, and you know, projections on what the revenue is going to be versus the expenses. And you know, at the end of the cycle is in April, we then vote on the proposed budget, and then that goes to the town and town council. Am I right on those dates?
You are.
You know, and being on the school committee now for a number of years, it took a while to figure out, okay, well, we're starting in presentation, you know, in early February, but it changes as it goes because what becomes a priority sometimes has to change due to funding sources or due to changes within the district. So it's a very fluid motion as it goes across.
And that's interesting too, because there's multiple facets of budgets as well, so we can break it down to viewers. There's buildings and assets as budgetary items, things that have to be repaired, things that are in motion that have, you know, maybe need additional money. And then, like you said, there's positions, there's new coursework materials. How does the superintendent work with the school committee to kind of balance those different needs?
Well, I think the great thing about the town of Barnstable is its capital improvement project budgeting. So those major projects, whether it's a roof replacement, a library renovation, are handled through a separate budgeting process. And so we work with the school committee on, here's what we're thinking in terms of our priorities for the capital improvement projects, and we have that discussion with the school committee. The operating budget, 80% of our operating budget is primarily people. And so the school committee always wants to ensure that we're keeping our class sizes lower and reasonable. So that's always the focus is the classroom first, and then we see what other funding we have available to supplement those types of classroom positions.
Right. How do residents get involved in this process? Like, you know, you want to hear input,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Probably through the public comment process at school committee meetings, which is surprising we don't have more input than we've had. You know, one thing I will tell you, the budget doesn't move a lot. You know, we have X number of dollars. There'll be a little increase in the upcoming year where people take up the majority of the budget. So obviously we're trying to do the best we can with the revenue allotted, but it doesn't give a lot of room for a lot of changes. So a lot of times if we're going in a direction where the district is changing and we need help in areas, that means we have to maybe cut back in some other areas that we don't need as much. And it's not, it's challenging, especially where, you know, the needle doesn't move that much because it's, you know, there's just a little bit of money, new funds, and by the time you cost of living and all those other things get added in, it doesn't leave much, you know, on the wish list.
Right. There's a number of different types of programs out there, but before we get into the things that are actually happening on I guess the turf or the fields of the schools right now, Innovation School, where are we?
Right, so so there's a group of what we refer to as stakeholders, primarily teachers. Myself, Barbara Dunn, represents the school committee on this stakeholder group that is designing the Innovation School application. That application defines what the school's mission and focus and sort of operation would be. So there's been much work, and that's to that model is to replace the Horace Mann charter school model that's currently in existence. So the stakeholder group has been meeting for a couple of months now. Great progress has been made. In fact, this week, the teachers at the community charter are going to vote on whether or not they accept the Innovation School plan. If they have to accept it by a 2/3 majority, and then the process goes to the school committee after that, because the school committee is actually the authority that authorizes an innovation school for up to 5 years. So we've wrapped up on designing the school, if you will, and now it's into the technical aspects of seeking and getting votes of the teachers and the school committee as well.
And the school committee prepared to look at this as the alternative to the charter school. And what does an innovation school give the school committee that a charter school did not?
Well, the simplest way to explain it is an innovation school from a classroom type setting is going to be very similar to a charter school. Just the administration of that school is run under the direction of the school district, where that building was run more by a board of directors. Their funding still came out of our budget. So it basically, and the stakeholders and then the teachers in the school that are working at that, I think are doing a tremendous job in what they're trying to achieve there.
Okay. Excellent. So now we'll move on to just recently in the last week or so, ALICE training has started with some of, I know our intern came in and said he just had some of his training. So let's explain what ALICE training is for those who don't have children in school and haven't gotten that information.
Sure. So ALICE is an acronym for our safety or our emergency response should there be a school intruder. So our teachers have gone through ALICE training since last summer. They took an online component of it. We had a number of professional development sessions just for teachers because we want to be sure that our building staff is very clear on what the ALICE protocol is, which basically stands for alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. And I think what's most important is the E in that, in ALICE, because if it's safe to do so, we want our educators to make decisions to get our students out of school safely and to a safe place. So that's been much of the training. Now we're shifting our efforts to ensuring that our students understand the protocol and have opportunities to practice it. Because what we know is the more opportunities that everyone has to practice, should there ever be a situation where we have a school intruder, they're going to rely on those practice sessions to really inform the action steps that they need to take. So schools we're very sensitive to the developmental needs of our children, and an Alice drill in kindergarten is going to look very different than an Alice drill at the high school level. So the high school students yesterday went through different scenarios. We have a great partnership with the Barnstable Police Department. We really do this we co-facilitate the sessions, and just can't say enough about our school resource officers that are leading this initiative with us. So this week, parents will probably hear at home that that their children have participated in some type of session developmentally appropriate for their age.
Right, and that kind of brings me to the one of the last topics we'll talk about is social emotional learning. It seems to be a catchphrase that's sort of started to come out, but it's really literally educating the whole child, not just the academic, but everything else that wraps around that.
Right.
And I'll start with you, Meg. Talk about social emotional learning in the schools. It's been 2 years now?
Yes.
2 years since this programming has come in.
Right.
Are you starting to see something with students, kinder, gentler world out there?
Right, I believe we are. And social emotional learning, we're putting a significant amount of resources into it. The school committee has adopted a vision around it. We have a universal curriculum to teach our students. And when we talk about social emotional learning, lots of times folks will say, what are you talking about? Well, it's a student's ability to self-manage, be self-aware, to make responsible decisions. And that covers the ground from preschool to seniors in high school. So it's something that we've put in that, again, it depends on the different grade level in terms of what that might look like in the classroom. At the elementary level, it's very much building a community sense in the classroom and having a community, a positive learning community. So teachers will begin each morning with what we call morning meeting. It's a way for all kids to come together, have a greeting, have a message. We kind of start in our day off in a very positive way. And the teacher language that occurs in something like morning meeting will be carried out through the day. Again, the goal is to build that positive learning environment and to help our students are faced with a ton of issues, regardless of their grade level. And I feel like it's a responsibility of our school system to help them not only learn an academic skill set, but a social emotional skill set to navigate the world in which they live in now.
Right. And Chris, when you look at the makeup of a school committee and you start talking about social emotional learning, where it seems that more residents are like, well, I got to pay taxes so you can teach science. How do you balance these types of programs with that academic mindset maybe of some of our older residents who haven't come in contact with children that are facing really different stuff nowadays?
Well, I mean, as Meg alluded to, these children today are facing challenges that we never thought would be brought in front of them. And there's a lot of skill set that we learned as kids just by human nature and by our culture and day-to-day activities that was just commonplace, and that's not happening today anymore. And if we're not preparing these kids, if we can get these kids by the time they're done and walked out of Barnstable Public Schools to believe in themselves, to have self-respect, to be able to be in a setting where they can speak for themselves and stand up for themselves, in my eyes, that is as important as anything else that we're going to teach them, because that's going to carry them very far in life. And that's just one simple part of social and emotional learning. There are so many other aspects that we would need a lot longer to discuss. But I think as any resident or taxpayer looking at this, if we're just teaching them reading, writing, math, engineering, and not teaching these other skills, we've failed drastically.
Right. And something that I had heard, I've been talking to Gina Hurley, who runs this program. She really said that these are skills that these children will take into adulthood into employment skills.
No question, absolutely no question.
So what would be, we'll end on a really positive note, what are some of those skills that our employers are looking for that this program's going to do?
Well, let's ask an employer.
Well, I mean, for instance, say one of our students goes to college and afterwards they're applying, or not going to college, and they're going to apply for a job, and hopefully we've got them college or career ready, and they go in their interview and they can look someone in the eye and believe in themselves that they can get that job, instead of not addressing someone correctly, not looking someone in the eye, not believing in themselves. So that is just one little iota. Or as they walk out of and go to college, and how are they going to interact with people they're living with, or in a different setting where they don't have so much control over them, where they have to make decisions. Hopefully we've taught them to act well with others and lead themselves instead of be followers.
It's also being very kind as well. I love the morning meeting. I think that is something that growing up in the 60s and 70s, we kind of did that in our classrooms. It was just you know, you had to wait for all the buses to get in kind of thing.
Yeah.
So as we look forward into the next quarter, anything that you want residents to know, just, you know, budget-wise, or, you know, going towards the end of the year? It's already January.
I know, and no snow days yet, so let's keep it that way, right? But this, for us, particularly in the central office and with the school committee, we start shifting to obviously paying attention to what's currently going on in the school system and in our schools, but preparing for next year. That's much of our work at this point.
And Chris?
I mean, right now, from a school committee standpoint, we're really knee-deep at the beginning, right as the front end of the budget season. So that's one of our big responsibilities as an elected official to the school committee, is oversight of the budget. So that's really what we're going to be spending a lot of our time on until we get that to the point we need to in April.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining
you.
us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Will it check out? It's more than just books today at your local library. We head over to Sturgis Library to check out all the cool things you can borrow with your library card. We're at Sturgis Library for our second segment, Will It Check Out? The libraries are much more than books nowadays, and with me, Corey Ferenkopf. You are like an enormous amount of titles here, so I'll let you, adult services, reference, but also, you know what's to check out, right?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of new stuff coming out right now. That's kind of the trend in libraries in the last couple of years, and you'll see libraries that are starting to rent out like tools and stuff for your household and different cooking implements and like really big, like kind of expensive equipment for people in the community. Here at Sturgis, we're starting kind of small because if we had like 15 lawnmowers to rent, I wouldn't be able to buy any books for people. So we got a list of stuff if you want me to tell you all about it.
Yeah, I would.
Cool. So first of all, we got a ukulele that we're going to be checking out. We had a ukulele program probably like 5 months back, and we probably had like 50 people show up for it. So there's a lot of people in the community that are really into ukulele. If you're wanting to start music and have like train kids how to do stuff, or if you're later on in life and never like picked up an instrument before, ukulele is super good to go to because it's 4 strings. You play it open, it plays a chord, and it's fairly simple to learn as far as like versus like violin, like that's rough. Right. So we got ukuleles. What Paul is holding, we've got a little scientist microscope kit. A while ago, we got a grant to kind of like increase our STEAM presence, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So we got a bunch of learning toys for children kind of between the ages of, I think, like 3 and 8. And so stuff like this little microscope will teach kids about like how the tiny world works.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other things that work for different musical arrangements and things to expand like children's problem solving and like inquisitiveness towards like sciences. Right. So we got that. We have our telescope that we check out fairly regularly. You get it for a week. It's like a high-end telescope, so it's got up to like magnification of like 52 times, I think.
Wow.
So you can see all the planets that are close by. I mean, you're not going to see like Pluto way out there, but you'll see Mars and Venus. That comes with a bunch of instructions on like how to use a telescope and like where to find certain what are they called?
Constellations.
Constellations, yeah. You can find certain constellations. And before you check it out, I give you like a little 10-minute lesson on how to use the telescope, what to expect with it. And it's supposed to be pretty helpful because if you've never used a telescope before, you get a complicated one. It's a little overwhelming. We also have a bunch of puzzles that we're lending out right now. And when I say puzzles, they're not like your run-of-the-mill puzzles that you would see everywhere. They're these like artisanal, wicked, like, it's hard to say anything besides like they're wicked artsy. They're all woodcut and they're all like small run. So they all have an image of a different piece of art on them. They all have pieces that are shaped in non-traditional ways. There's a bunch that don't have normal edges. And it sounds kind of weird when you're saying it out loud, but when you see it and you see like the crazy wavy edges or the edges that form itself into like a city skyline or a castle village, some of the pieces are shaped like squirrels or turtles or like weird keys. Some, when you finish them, you put it'll come with a key and you put your key into it and turn it, and a bunch of gears will move inside the puzzle, and like the thing will actually move and like come to life for a moment. Yeah, they're nuts, and people really like them. We also have a bunch of knitting kits we're going to start circulating, which are just...
This is fascinating.
Right? People love this idea. And it's knitting needles, patterns, and a singular skein of art. Skein? Yeah. But we're also going to do knitting bags at the library, and that's part of like a community project we're going to have going. It's basically for anyone who knows how to knit, and when they come to the library, if they're like, I got half an hour, I feel like knitting for a bit, we're going to have these available, and people can continue the work of whoever was knitting previously, and we're going to try to do probably like blankets for the homeless and like caps and mittens and stuff for people in need, so that'll be really cool. That'll be starting soon. We'll be looking for donations of skeins of yarn. If people are willing to donate, that'd be awesome. And we're always continually trying to add stuff. I'm going to say stuff kind of broadly as far as all this stuff goes. We listen to what our patrons are looking for. We're looking for different community input. So if anyone has any suggestions, we're always open-eared here at the library. And that's kind of all the random things we're circulating now that aren't books.
All right, well, make sure. I think I'm going to check that ukulele out.
Do it.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Corey.
You're very welcome.
Here's a look at things to do, places to go, and people to meet. Nobody wants the flu for Super Bowl Sunday. The town of Barnstable has added yet another influenza vaccination clinic on Thursday, January 31st from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Hyannis Youth and Community Center, 141 Bassett Lane, Hyannis. Head straight into the front lobby and roll up your sleeve. The fee is $3 and it's relatively painless. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Email us or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works. For you, I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.